Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. Jake nervously adjusted his grip on the leash as the transport shuttle touched down with a soft hiss on the landing pad of Zoltran University. Beside him, Duke, his loyal wolfhound, whined softly, sensing his master's tension. As the shuttle door slid open, a blast of alien atmosphere greeted them, rich with exotic scents. Duke perked up immediately, his nose twitching. "Easy, boy," Jake murmured, patting Duke's head. "Let's show them how we do things on Earth." Stepping onto the campus, Jake scanned the crowd. Aliens of various shapes and sizes milled about, some with tendrils, others with multiple eyes, all turning to stare at the imposing figure of Duke. "Is that a beast from Earth?" A voice crackled from Jake's translator device. Turning, Jake faced a towering Gelfarian, his skin shimmering blue in the sunlight. "Yep, this is Duke. He's a wolfhound, one of the friendliest you'll meet." The Gelfarian bent closer, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. "I am Zorith," he introduced himself, extending a limb that Jake hesitated only a moment before shaking. "Welcome to Zoltran. I never expected Deathworlders to bring their wild animals to class." Jake laughed, the sound mingling with Duke's gentle panting. "Well, Duke's part of the package. Earth's a wild place, but it teaches you a lot about loyalty and courage." Just then, another figure approached, smaller and covered in green scales. "I'm Riluo," he said, eyeing Duke warily. "I study xenobiology. I've read about Earth's fauna, but seeing it is quite different." "Nice to meet you, Riluo," Jake replied. "Duke's probably the first of his kind you've met?" "Huh?" "Indeed." Riluo nodded, keeping a safe distance. "Is he safe?" "As safe as anyone here, I'd bet," Jake assured him, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Duke, sensing the calm, sat down, looking around with mild interest. The three began walking towards the main hall, Jake's boots thudding solidly against the metallic walkway. Zorith seemed curious about Jake's casual demeanor. "Aren't you worried about how others might react to Duke?" he asked. Jake shrugged. "Part of being from Earth. We face fears head-on. Duke here helps bridge that gap. He's a great icebreaker." Riluo seemed to ponder this as they entered the bustling main hall, filled with the hum of alien dialects and the occasional robotic beep. "Here on Zoltran, we learn much from diversity," Zorith explained, gesturing around. "Each species brings something unique." "What do you hope to bring, Jake from Earth?" "Perspective, I guess," Jake said, as they stopped by a large digital map displaying the university grounds. "And maybe a bit of Earth spirit. We're resilient, resourceful, and yeah, a bit wild. But we learn, adapt, and most importantly, we connect." Duke chose that moment to lie down, drawing a small crowd of intrigued onlookers. Their fears seemed to ebb as they observed Duke's calm demeanor. "It looks like Duke is already drawing quite the attention," Riluo observed, a hint of amusement in his voice. Jake nodded, watching the crowd with pride. "He has a way with people, or aliens, for that matter. Makes friends wherever he goes." As they navigated through their first introductions, Jake felt the initial anxiety of arrival ebb away. Here at Zoltran, amongst the stars and the strange, there was a new world of possibilities. And with Duke by his side, he was ready to take on whatever challenges that world might hold. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as students from across the galaxy filled the seats. Jake stood backstage, Duke resting at his feet, both waiting for their cue. Zorith and Riluo hovered nearby, peering at the setup that included holographic displays of Earth's landscapes. "Are you sure they're ready for this?" Riluo asked, his voice tinged with concern. Jake chuckled, adjusting the projector remote in his hand. "They might as well be. Earth isn't just trees and mountains, after all. It's the wild that makes it special." The lights dimmed, and Zorith gave Jake a gentle push. "It's your time, Earthling." Jake stepped out, Duke by his side, into a spotlight. Murmurs of excitement and apprehension rippled through the crowd as they saw the large wolfhound. Jake raised his hand for silence. "Good day, everyone. I'm Jake, and this gentle giant here is Duke. Today, I'll introduce you to the wild side of Earth, our home. He clicked the remote, and the first image appeared. A lush, dense rainforest. This is the Amazon rainforest, one of Earth's lungs. It's teeming with life, not just plants but thousands of unique animal species. Another click, and the scene changed to the African savanna. Here, you have the savannas of Africa, where creatures like elephants, lions, and giraffes roam freely. As each image flickered on the screen, whispers of awe filled the room. Jake explained food chains and ecosystems, highlighting Earth's biodiversity. Now, not all animals are as large or as visible as Duke here, Jake continued, his voice filled with pride as he presented a slide of insects and birds. Size isn't everything on Earth. It's about survival, adaptation, and the role each organism plays. Riluo stepped forward, his curiosity piqued. How do these creatures coexist without destroying each other? That's the beauty of Earth, Jake replied. Balance. Predators have their prey, but there's a mutual respect dictated by nature's laws. The audience was captivated, their eyes locked on the images of creatures they had never imagined. Jake decided it was time for the finale. He clicked to a video of Duke playing in a park back on Earth, fetching sticks and running around. This here is a wolfhound, not quite a wolf, more like a gentle version, bred by humans to be companions. Duke here exemplifies loyalty and courage, but also the harmony we strive for with nature. As the video played, Duke, sensing his cue, stood up and let out a soft bark, which echoed oddly musical through the auditorium. The presentation concluded with a round of applause. Students and faculty approached the stage, eager for a closer look at Duke, who wagged his tail in response. Zorith leaned over to Jake, a smile spreading across his shimmering face. You've done a remarkable job today, Jake. This was an eye-opener. Jake beamed with pride, patting Duke who sat obediently by his side. Thanks, Zorith. I hope this helps everyone appreciate not just Earth, but the importance of all life forms. As the crowd began to disperse, Riluo stayed back, his eyes thoughtful. Jake, could you tell us more about Earth's oceans next time? My people come from a water planet, and I think there could be interesting parallels. Absolutely, Jake agreed, his mind already racing with ideas. Earth's oceans are as diverse as its lands. You'll love what we have to share. The three of them walked out of the auditorium together, discussing plans for future seminars. The success of today's event had sown seeds of curiosity and respect among the diverse student body, bridging worlds with shared knowledge and a newfound appreciation for Earth's wild wonders. The next few weeks at Zoltran University were a whirlwind of activity and newfound interest in Earth's ecosystems. Jake, with Duke always by his side, became a popular figure on campus, and his lectures were increasingly attended not only by students but also by curious faculty members. One sunny afternoon, Jake and Duke were invited to join a discussion group led by Professor Lorvin, a renowned xenocultural expert. The topic was interspecies relations and Earth's influence on galactic perceptions. As Jake entered the room, he noted the diversity of attendees, including a burly Krytoshan named Tarn, known for his brilliant engineering mind, but also his initial skepticism about Earth creatures. Jake, welcome. Professor Lorvin gestured to a seat next to Tarn. We're just discussing the role of Earth animals in teaching us about environmental stewardship. Tarn nodded at Jake, a hint of respect in his previously doubtful eyes. I must admit, your last presentation was enlightening. I never thought creatures as diverse as those could coexist without chaos. Jake smiled, settling down. Thanks, Tarn. It's all about balance and understanding each species' needs and boundaries. Professor Lorvin interjected. Could you expand on how humans have learned to interact with such a variety of life forms without dominating them? Well, Jake began, it's not perfect, and we've had our share of mistakes. But it's about respect and learning to adapt to their needs, rather than forcing them to adapt to ours. The discussion deepened, with members from different species sharing how their own planets managed natural resources and wildlife. Riluo, who had also joined, shared insights from his water-based planet, drawing parallels and contrasts with Earth's methods. Tarn leaned forward, intrigued. So, what you're suggesting is a more integrated approach to technology and nature. Using tech to enhance, not control? Exactly, Jake agreed. On Earth, we're developing ways to use technology to monitor ecosystems without intruding on them. It's a delicate balance, but the benefits of maintaining biodiversity are worth it. The clock ticked away as the room buzzed with animated conversation. Ideas were exchanged, and plans were made to visit Earth-like simulation labs the next week. Jake invited the group to join him and Duke for a practical demonstration of Earth training methods and animal care. As the session ended, Tarn approached Jake. I'd like to understand more about your planet's tech and animal integration. Maybe there's something we can adapt for Krytos. I'd be happy to show you, Jake replied. Let's set up a time to go through it. Earth might not have the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but what we do have works well with our environment. Deal, Tarn said, shaking Jake's hand. And perhaps I could show you some Krytosian engineering. Might find something useful to take back to Earth. Jake laughed, patting Duke, who had been quietly observing the discussions. Sounds like a plan. Duke here might enjoy seeing some of that famous Krytosian tech. As they walked out, Rilluo joined them, his expression thoughtful. Jake, your approach might help us on my home planet too. We've been having issues with underwater habitat destruction. Maybe your techniques could help. Let's explore that, Jake said, enthusiastic about the collaborative potential. Duke and I are here to share what we know and learn from you all as well. Walking back to his quarters with Duke trotting beside him, Jake felt a surge of optimism. The university was becoming a melting pot of ideas and cultures, all sparked by the surprising introduction of an Earth dog into their midst. What started as a simple inclusion of Duke had evolved into a significant exchange of knowledge and mutual respect among the stars. Jake walked alongside Sani beside one of Zoltran University's many tranquil water features. The sound of gently bubbling water provided a soothing backdrop to their conversation. Sani's curiosity about Earth had only grown since their last group discussion. So, Jake, Sani began, his eyes reflecting the shimmering lights on the water surface, you mentioned Earth's oceans have similar challenges to those we face on Shiloh, my home planet. Could you tell me more? Jake nodded, finding Sani's genuine interest refreshing. Well, our oceans are vast and full of life, much like yours. We face pollution, overfishing, and habitat destruction, just like on Shiloh. But we've been developing conservation strategies and sustainable practices. Interesting, Sani mused. We've tried various methods to restore our coral reefs. How do humans deal with such issues? Jake was about to answer when they were joined by Zorith and Rilluo. The group greeted each other warmly before continuing down the path. Jake was just about to explain some of Earth's ocean restoration techniques. Sani informed the others. Yes, Earth's proactive approaches, Zorith said, eager to learn. I've read some intriguing papers. Perhaps you could elaborate on how technology and traditional methods blend in these efforts. Certainly, Jake replied. One method involves using old, damaged ships as artificial reefs. They're sunk deliberately to provide new habitats for marine life, helping to rejuvenate the ecosystem. Rilluo seemed puzzled. Isn't that risky? Introducing foreign materials to the ocean? It is, but these ships are thoroughly cleaned and made safe before being used, Jake clarified. It's all about enhancing the natural environment without imposing too much. As they walked, the conversation shifted to the subject of marine protected areas, MPAs. MPAs are like reserves where fishing and other extractive activities are limited or banned outright, Jake explained. They give marine populations a chance to recover and flourish. It's been quite successful in many areas. Sani nodded thoughtfully. That could be applicable to Shiloh. We need something similar to protect our dwindling nekton populations. Zorith, always interested in applying practical solutions, chimed in. Could we simulate such an MPA here at Zoltran? A kind of cross-species project that might benefit multiple planets. That's a brilliant idea, Jake agreed enthusiastically. We could use the university's resources to create a model, using data from Earth, Shiloh, and any other participating worlds. The group agreed to propose this project to the university's board, feeling energized by the potential collaboration. They spent the next hour outlining their plan, each contributing from their own experiences and expertise. As they parted ways, Jake felt a sense of accomplishment. What started as a casual walk had morphed into a potentially groundbreaking project. Sonny lingered a moment longer, his gaze thoughtful. "Jake, I really appreciate your insights," he said sincerely. "Your perspective is quite unique here at Zoltran. I'm learning a lot from you." Jake smiled, clapping Sonny on the shoulder. "And I'm learning from you guys too. That's what it's all about, right? Sharing and growing together." They agreed to meet again soon to refine their project proposal. As Sonny walked away, Jake looked out over the water, Duke at his side. The connections forming here, underpinned by mutual respect and curiosity, might just be the beginning of something significant, not just for their own worlds, but for the entire galaxy. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the university's botanical gardens as Jake and Sonny strolled down the winding paths lined with exotic, alien flora. The air was perfumed with the scent of blooms from countless worlds, making the garden a popular retreat for reflective students and faculty. "So, Sonny, tell me about Shiloh. What's it like?" Jake asked, genuinely interested in understanding more about Sonny's aquatic home world. "It's quite different from Earth," Sonny began, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "Imagine vast oceans that cover entire continents, with cities built on the seabed and in coral towers. The surface is almost untouched, wild with storms." "That sounds incredible," Jake mused. "It must be challenging to maintain such habitats." "It is," Sonny agreed, "but it teaches us to be mindful of our environment. Every new construction or initiative has to be balanced with the ecosystem's health." Their discussion was interrupted by a cheerful call. "Jake, Sonny." It was Zorath, accompanied by a new figure, a slender being named Ilias from a gaseous planet, Vindra. They approached with easy smiles. "Ilias is interested in our project about marine protected areas," Zorath explained. "He thinks there might be parallels with Vindra's atmospheric preserves." Ilias nodded, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Yes, the concept of preserving and restoring is universal, it seems. Vindra has reserves where we protect the dense clouds that produce essential nutrients for our species. I'm curious how your water-based methods might translate. Perhaps we can find common ground in our approaches," Sonny suggested, eager to expand the project's scope. Jake clapped his hands together. "Let's sit here and chat more." "Duke, here boy," he called, and the wolfhound trotted over, settling down beside them as they took seats on a nearby bench. As they talked, Jake shared details about Earth's environmental policies, Sonny described Shiloh's underwater urban planning, and Ilias elaborated on Vindra's efforts to maintain atmospheric health. "I think we're looking at a fundamental principle here," Jake observed. "Regardless of the environment, water, land, or air, the need to sustain and restore it is something we all share." "Exactly," Ilias agreed. "It's about harnessing technology and traditional knowledge in a way that respects the natural order." The conversation flowed effortlessly, with each contributing insights from their backgrounds. As they discussed, Riluo joined them, adding his perspective on the challenges faced by his people. "It seems we all struggle with similar issues," Riluo noted. "Overexploitation, pollution, habitat loss. It's a galaxy-wide problem, isn't it?" "It is," Jake confirmed. "But together, like this, we can also find galaxy-wide solutions." The group agreed to draft a proposal for an interplanetary symposium on conservation techniques, aiming to include representatives from various academic disciplines and worlds. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the garden, the group parted ways, each inspired by the productive and enlightening discussion. Jake and Duke lingered a moment longer, watching the sunset. "Good talk, huh, Duke?" Jake said, scratching the wolfhound behind his ears. Duke barked softly in agreement, and they began their walk back to their quarters. The day had not only reinforced Jake's commitment to environmental stewardship, but also deepened his connections with his peers from across the galaxy. Together, they were not just learning about each other's worlds, but also how to better protect them. Later that week, Jake found himself in the bustling university cafeteria, where the chatter of diverse languages created a lively backdrop. He was supposed to meet Sonny for lunch, but as he scanned the room, his eyes landed on a disheartening scene. Sonny was sitting across from another student, their heads close together, deep in conversation. Jake felt a twinge of jealousy, a feeling that caught him off guard. He approached their table, feeling unusually apprehensive. "Hey, Sonny," Jake greeted, trying to keep his voice casual. Sonny looked up, his expression brightening. "Jake, come join us. This is Karen, from the Xenolinguistics department. We were just discussing the language of dolphins on Earth compared to Shiloh's whale songs." Karen nodded at Jake, offering a friendly smile. "Sonny tells me you're quite the expert on Earth's marine life." Jake took a seat, though his mind was elsewhere. "Not an expert, but I know a bit." "What's the angle?" "We're exploring the concept of interspecies communication and its potential applications," Sonny explained, oblivious to Jake's discomfort. "Karen is interested in whether Earth's research could inform our understanding on Shiloh." The conversation turned technical, discussing frequencies and linguistic patterns, but Jake's thoughts kept drifting. After lunch, as Sonny and Karen continued their animated discussion, Jake excused himself, feeling a mix of confusion and irritation. Later that day, Jake walked with Duke in a quieter part of the campus, trying to sort through his feelings. He was so engrossed in his thoughts that he almost walked straight into Zorith, who was coming from the opposite direction. "Jake, you look like you've lost a thought somewhere," Zorith observed, stopping to pet Duke. "What's on your mind?" "It's nothing, just some silly feelings about Sonny." "I think I might be," Jake trailed off, unsure how to continue. "Jealous?" Zorith offered, his tone gentle. Jake sighed. "Yeah, I saw him with another student today, and it just hit me. I guess I've gotten used to him being around." Zorith chuckled softly. "You humans are fascinating with your emotions, but it's good to recognize them. Have you talked to Sonny about how you feel?" "No, I haven't. I don't even know if it's appropriate," Jake admitted. "That's the only way you'll find peace, my friend. Communication isn't just for academics," Zorith advised. Taking the advice to heart, Jake arranged to meet Sonny the next morning in the same botanical gardens where they had first discussed their collaboration. The air was crisp, and the early sunlight filtered through the leaves as Jake spotted Sonny waiting by the fountain. "Morning, Jake. You wanted to talk?" Sonny greeted him, sensing the seriousness in Jake's demeanor. Jake took a deep breath. "Sonny, I need to be honest about something. I've been feeling a bit off lately. I think I might be feeling more than just friendship towards you." Sonny blinked, surprise evident on his face. "Jake, I'm honored. But my people, we don't experience relationships the way humans do. I value our friendship deeply, though." The honesty in Sonny's voice eased some of Jake's tension. "I understand, and I don't want anything to change between us. I just needed you to know." Sonny stepped closer, placing a hand on Jake's shoulder. "I respect your courage in sharing this, Jake. Our friendship is important to me too, and I'm glad you told me." They spent a few moments in silence, the awkwardness slowly fading. As they resumed walking, the conversation shifted back to their project, both feeling a sense of relief. "Thanks for being so understanding, Sonny," Jake said as they parted ways later. "Thank you for trusting me, Jake," Sonny replied, a smile returning to his face. As Jake walked back to his quarters with Duke, he felt lighter, having cleared the air. He was learning that not every strong emotion led to romantic outcomes, but acknowledging them was crucial to maintaining meaningful connections. Jake decided to host an Earth-style dinner to showcase his culture's cuisine and foster a deeper understanding among his new university friends. He invited Sonny, Zorith, and several others, including Ilias and Riluo, to his residence one evening. As guests arrived, the aroma of spiced food filled the air. Jake had prepared a variety of dishes, from grilled vegetables and meats to rich, creamy desserts. "Wow, what is that amazing smell?" Ilias asked as he entered, his senses immediately intrigued by the unfamiliar scents. "That would be the barbecue ribs, a classic from Earth. And there's also some vegetarian curry for those who don't eat meat," Jake explained, leading them to a table laden with food. Sonny looked over the dishes with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Is all Earth food this vibrant?" Jake laughed. "We do like our flavors strong and our meals hearty. Don't worry, I've got some milder options too." As the evening progressed, the group shared stories about their own planet's cuisines, drawing parallels and discussing the cultural significance of food. Zorith, who had been surprisingly quiet, spoke up. On Jelfer, we consume a lot of roots and fungi. They're not as exciting as this, he gestured to the spread, but they're packed with nutrients. Riluo, enjoying a second helping of curry, added, we have something similar on my planet. It's a dish made from seaweed and fish. It's more about sustenance than taste. The conversation then drifted to how food influenced social and family gatherings across different cultures. Meals on Shiloh are quite the affair, Sani shared. Since we live underwater, our foods are often in liquid form, but we gather in large groups to share. It's a community event every time. Jake nodded, finding the comparisons enlightening. It's similar on Earth. Meals are a time for family and friends to come together. It's about sharing not just food, but also our day, our thoughts. As dessert was served, a rich chocolate cake, the group mused over how such gatherings could help bridge cultural gaps. Ilias, his tone thoughtful as he sampled the cake, remarked, it's fascinating how despite our differences, some things are universal. Gathering, sharing, discussing. It's a part of who we are, no matter where we're from. Exactly, Jake agreed. It's about finding those common threads. Tonight, it's food, but every day, through our projects and discussions, we weave a bit more of that tapestry. The dinner ended on a high note, with promises to host similar gatherings, each featuring another culture's cuisine. As the guests departed, Sani stayed back to help Jake clean up. Thank you for this evening, Jake. It was more than just a meal. It felt like a step towards something bigger. Jake smiled, handing Sani a dish to dry. I hope so. I think we're on to something good here, not just with our project but with this intercultural exchange. They worked in companionable silence for a few moments before Sani spoke again. You know, I've been thinking about your feelings, he began hesitantly. Jake tensed, but kept his expression neutral. Oh, I may not feel the same, Jake, but I've grown to care about you a lot. And I think I understand better now. The importance of expressing feelings and sharing parts of our lives, like we did tonight, that means a lot to me, Sani. Truly, Jake said, genuinely touched. Their conversation reaffirmed their friendship and mutual respect, setting a foundation for whatever lay ahead. As Sani left, Jake felt a sense of contentment. His idea for a simple dinner had turned into a meaningful exchange of cultures and ideas, reinforcing the beauty of diversity and the power of openness in forging lasting connections. As the academic year drew to a close, the campus of Zoltran University buzzed with the energy of completion and the anticipation of new beginnings. Jake and his friends gathered in the main auditorium for the graduation ceremony, a culmination of their year's efforts and experiences. Before the ceremony began, Jake, Sani, Zorith, and Riluo huddled together, sharing quiet conversations about their future plans. So, Jake, what's next for you? Heading straight back to Earth? Zorith inquired, adjusting his ceremonial robes. Jake shook his head, a smile playing on his lips. Not immediately. Sani and I planned a trip to Earth. It's time he saw where all those stories come from. Sani nodded enthusiastically. I'm quite excited. Earth sounds like a fascinating place, especially with all I've learned this year. And what about you, Zorith? What's the plan? Jake asked, turning the question to his towering friend. I've been offered a position at the university here to continue my research. I think I'll stay a bit longer, Zorith replied, his voice tinged with pride. Riluo chimed in, and I'm returning to my home planet. There's a project starting, based on the conservation techniques we discussed here. They need someone with interplanetary experience. That's wonderful, Riluo, Jake said, genuinely pleased for his friend. You'll have to keep us updated on how it progresses. As their names were called, each walked across the stage to receive their diplomas. Their diverse nature's a testament to the university's inclusive spirit. Duke, adorned with a small ceremonial garland, walked alongside Jake when his turn came, eliciting cheers and laughter from the audience. After the ceremony, the group gathered outside in the university gardens, basking in the glow of their achievements and the warm sun. I can't believe it's over, Jake said, looking around at his friends. Feels like we just started. It's not really over, though, Sani pointed out. It's more of a beginning, isn't it? A step into whatever comes next. True, Jake agreed. We've got a lot ahead of us. New challenges, new adventures. Zorith looked at them, his eyes serious. You know, this year changed a lot for me. I learned so much from all of you, about tolerance, about friendship. I think we've all grown. Definitely, Rilyuo said, nodding. I used to think my planet's problems were unique. Now I see how interconnected we all are. What we learned here can help not just us, but many others. The conversation shifted to memories of their year together, from their first bewildering days to the final understanding and acceptance of each other's differences. As the day faded into evening, Jake turned to Tsani. Ready for Earth's wild side? Tsani laughed. As ready as I'll ever be. Jake clapped him on the back. It's going to be great. You'll see the oceans, the mountains, and yes, even the wild animals. And I'll be there to see it with you, Tsani said, his voice warm with anticipation. As they said their goodbyes, each carrying the promise of future reunions, Jake felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The year had been one of growth, discovery, and friendship. With Duke by his side and his friends just a calm call away, he was ready to face whatever came next. With a final look back at the university, Jake and Duke started their journey home, ready to introduce yet another friend to the beauty and complexity of Earth. Their shared experiences at Zoltran University had not only bridged worlds, but had also created bonds strong enough to last across the stars.